Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. I am Anup Sesaren, CEO at NCM Business Consultants Private Limited. NCM is a company where we work on a concept called collaborative commerce, basically a new term for many of us. Actually, which is enabling different users, different businesses to work together by integrating innovative ideas and technologies with some sort of physical channels. Today we have the well-known trainer C.A. Natarajan with us. So let me introduce him briefly. He was a chartered accountant and assistant vice president of SBI, State Bank of India. After that, with his passion of teaching, he started his teaching career with as a visiting faculty with Institute of Chartered Accountant of India, ICW and ICSI. Along with that, he is an instructor on Udemy, a well-known e-learning platform with more than 1.5 lakh students. And he's a person who conduct this kind of workshops for entrepreneurs as well as students on topic related to finance. Now, with any further delay, I would like to welcome our facilitator as well as all of you. So let's start with the session. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. I'll just open my presentation. Yeah, is it okay? Is it visible?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, fine. Okay, thanks a lot for that introduction. I am CA N. Raja, Chartered Accountant by qualification and an edupreneur by passion. Just a day before completing my chartered accountancy, I got placed with State Bank of India in mid-corporate group, where I had an opportunity to work on loan proposals of mid-corporate units. So in a period of 4 years, I was able to handle close to 250 projects of 5,000 plus crore size. Then I was into CA practice for a period of 7.5 years, but my heart always goes for teaching and training. And I explored online technology. I was able to leverage it, and I started teaching through online platforms, as mentioned in Udemy. So thanks to the technology, today I was able to teach more than 150,000 students. And I do conduct training programs on financial fitness for entrepreneurs and financial analysis for bankers. And today I welcome all of you for this session, Financial Fitness for Business, Need of the Hour. Before, I'll call it as pre-COVID. Pre-COVID, the importance for financial fitness was very less, I would say, because it was taken for granted. But this COVID is a testing time for many of the businesses who don't have that financial fitness. So what do I mean by financial fitness here? There are various technical definitions, okay? But for me, when I say financial fitness, it is the ability of the business to meet its cash flows requirements. Let it be in short term, let it be in long term. If that business is having ability to meet its cash flow requirements in short term and long term without any difficulty, then I would say that business is financially fit. And there are various factors required to ensure a business remains financially fit. So what are those factors? I'm just going to touch on 2 critical factors, and I will give you 1 add-on. Okay. So as an entrepreneur, please ensure your business is financially fit all the times. That is required for 2 reasons. Reason number 1, if you want to survive in a recessionary situation like this, what we are undergoing, your business have to be financially fit. Number 2, if you want to get the advantages of growing market condition or a booming market condition, again, your business got to be financially fit. Okay, so 2 reasons I attribute. Reason number 1, if you want to ensure survival of your business during recessionary conditions, ensure your business is financially fit. And if you want to grow, if you want to encash opportunities in booming market condition, again, ensure your business is financially fit. Okay, so how this session is going to be, I'm going to take you through three important areas. Number one, this is something I would call as a mantra for every entrepreneur. So if at all you are not taught about this in your school days, in your college days, or in any of your training program, take this program very seriously, okay? And try to register this deep into your heart and mind, because this will save your business for generations together, okay? That is how to and how not to utilize funds. Many of us do not really understand the importance of this, okay? So that's what I'm going to touch on, number one. Number two, I'm going to talk about something known as cost of capital, which several entrepreneurs, they believe they know, but actually they don't go into in depth of it. And number three, I'm also going to touch on some important financial metrics, which as an entrepreneur, you have to take care. Okay, so let's get started. Before I proceed, I just want to ensure my audio, video, everything is perfect. Just type perfect so that we can move further. Just type perfect. All of you just type perfect. So I just want to ensure my connectivity is okay. Yeah, thanks a lot. Let's get started. The first one, how to and how not to utilize funds. I'm going to call this as fund utilization principle. Probably I gave this name. I did not find such name in any books or any references. I gave this name. Okay. How many of you here know what is balance sheet? How many of you here know how to read your balance sheet? Just type I. If you know how to read the balance sheet of your business, just type I. I just want to see how many of you over here know how to read your balance sheet. I need your participation. If you know how to read the balance sheet of your business, just type I. Okay, Dr. Girish Kumar, Basil Jose. And please ensure you participate so that your next 90 minutes is going to be really valuable for you. Okay, so we have very few members replying. Okay, Saji, yes, obvious, the person who prepares the balance sheet. Okay, now let me tell you, if you are an entrepreneur, please, you have to develop your skill to read the balance sheet. For reading balance sheet, you need not be an accountant, you need not be a chartered accountant, okay? But balance sheet is the mirror, okay? It's going to reflect what's in your business. So you got to develop the ability to read the balance sheet of your business. And balance sheet typically shows from where funds have come and where those funds have been utilized. Okay, that's what balance sheet does. It gives the position as on a particular date. Okay, now just have a look at the screen. I'm going to relate this with a balance sheet. Just have a look at this. In balance sheet, money can come from various, in balance sheet, you will be capturing the money which had come from various parties. Money can come from owners, which we call put together as equity, and money can come from outsiders, which we call as liabilities. Okay. And when money comes from outsiders, which we call as liability, it can come for a short-term period, it can come for a long-term period. Okay. So I repeat, for a business, money can come from owners, which we call as equity. Money can come from outsiders, which we call as liabilities. And money coming from outsiders can be divided into short-term and long-term. So the money which is coming from outsiders for a short-term period, we call as short-term liabilities. It means you have to repay this money within a period of 1 year. Say, for example, you take cash credit overdraft from bank, repayable within 1 year. You get credit from your supplier, repayable within 1 year. Okay, term loans repayable within 1 year. All those are short-term liabilities. Technically, if you want me to say this in balance sheet language itself, we call them as current liability. Okay. So in business, money can come from short-term liabilities. Yes. And what you do with that money, you will create some assets. That is, you will create some short-term assets. But now if you look at the slide, on the left-hand side where I have captured the short-term liabilities, it is comparatively of smaller size. And on the right-hand side, I have a larger box, short-term assets. And I said these short-term assets are created with short-term liability, But an obvious question could arise, how so much of short-term asset you can create with only this much of short-term liability? You cannot know. So that gives rise to the message that you cannot create all the short-term assets with this much of short-term liability. It means you have managed, or you have brought in some more funds. That is, you have brought in some long-term funds also. So look at the left hand side. There are long-term liabilities coming into picture. The owner money is also coming into picture. So if you look at the left hand side, it is basically divided into two components. One is short-term funds. The other one is long-term funds. I have used short-term funds for creating short-term asset, and I have also used some long-term funds for creating short-term assets. Okay. Now, I have brought in so much of long-term funds. I have used some portion of it for creating short-term assets. It means the remaining portion of long-term funds has been used for creating long-term assets. Okay. Now this is my foundation. What I am conveying here, I'm raising short-term liability. I'm using it for creating short-term asset. I'm raising long-term fund. I'm using a portion of long-term fund for creating short-term asset, and remaining long-term funds, I have used it for long-term assets. Now, whoever listening, okay, listen to this very carefully, because this is going to be the life-saving mantra for entrepreneurs. What is that? When you raise short-term liability, you can use it for creating short-term assets. It is good. When you raise long-term funds, you can use it for creating long-term assets. That is also good. When you raise long-term funds, you can also use it for creating some short-term assets. That is ideal, I would say. Okay. Why it is ideal? Because you are using a long-term fund which you need not pay immediately, and you're using that money for creating some short-term assets. What do I mean by short-term assets? These are all the assets which you can convert into cash within a period of 1 year. Let's say you invest in inventory, you invest on your customers. Okay, it means these assets will get converted into cash within a period of 1 year. So if I'm using long-term fund, let's say owner's money, I use that for purchasing some inventory. I use that for creating some customers. Okay, it's good, because these are all long-term fund, and I'm investing that on short-term assets. It means the payback, the money will come back to me at a faster pace. Okay, so all these are good. Short-term funds for short-term assets, long-term funds for long-term assets. Long-term funds for short-term assets is also good. But one thing which should never ever happen in any business, all entrepreneurs, whoever attending this webinar, please make a note of this. And if you have done this in your business, it's time that you have to start correcting this. Okay. Never ever divert short-term funds for long-term purpose. Never ever divert this. Because having been in banking and even in practice, so I would say more than a decade experience in banking, and I've seen n number of business, n number of potential businesses, they become a failure, they become sick, they become non-performing assets in the books of banks, or they eventually even face a closure because of this single mistake. They divert short-term funds for long-term purpose. What do I mean this? What do I mean by saying this? Let's say you have funds in cash credit, you have funds in overdraft, or you are supposed to pay some money to your supplier. It means that is also a credit you have. These are all the funds which you have to repay within a period of 1 year. Okay. And for paying those obligations, you need resources, right? Okay. So you have raised money in the form of cash credit or overdraft, or some money you have on hand, you are yet to pay your supplier. Please realize this is for settling within a period of 1 year. If you use that money for creating some long-term asset, let's say like purchasing land for your business, or some plant and machinery, or some even take it out of the business, like loans and advances to sister concerns, or they will even divert. Okay, please don't do that. Okay, it is not an advice, it's a caution, because whoever have given you this money, they're all short-term lenders. They will come and ask you back for repayment within that 1 year period. Okay, say it is a case of a cash credit, it is a case of overdraft, or it is a case of supplier credit. They will come and ask you to repay this money within a period of 1 year. I mean, when the due date approaches. And if it is a case of a bank, and if bank finds that cash credit is not used for business purpose, short-term purpose or working capital purpose, and instead it has been used for acquiring some long-term asset, bank will see that this cash credit is a clean cash credit without primary security. So what they will do, they will recall. And do not think I'm saying this from an imaginary base or a theory. No, because having been in banking, I've seen this in reality, real life. Okay, so the businesses which have diverted short-term funds for long-term purpose are those businesses which witness a failure first. Sorry for starting this session with a failure note like this, but this is something which I have taken as a pledge to educate as many entrepreneurs as possible. Every Sunday I conduct a webinar where I send this as a key message to all the bankers. Please educate entrepreneurs on this aspect. Tell them not to divert short-term funds for long-term purpose. Whenever I've explained this in seminars, or whenever I've conducted sessions for entrepreneurs, when I touch on this, at least a dozen of entrepreneurs will say, yes, we did this mistake, nobody told us. Because you will not realize, because when you look at the cash credit, when you have so much of unutilized amount, something will come and cover up our eyes. Okay, because every money, has Gandhiji, or it is lying unutilized in cash credit, and we take it for granted. Instead of using it for working capital purpose, instead of using it for day-to-day operation purpose, what we do, since we have a lot of money unutilized in cash credit, overdraft or supplies credit, we go and divert it in long-term asset. But what is the problem? The money gets stuck. Because when you invest in long-term asset, it means those assets are not saleable immediately. If you are going to invest in land, okay, let's say you have used the cash credit facility, you have invested in land. Now banker have realized that, okay, there is some problem. They're asking for the repayment. And what you can do, you don't have matching short-term asset because you've used it for long-term asset. And what you can do, when the bank gives the ultimate pressure, you will try to sell the land. And just go and try to sell the land, it will not happen just like that. And whenever you try to sell the land, or for that matter, any long-term asset under pressure, then it will fetch only its forced sale value, FSV. And forced sale value, it will be much or significantly lesser than the price what you have paid for. Okay, so that's the impact. Even there was a study, okay, there was a study like Reserve Bank studied all the failed businesses. They have the database of all non-performing assets in the books of banks. Non-performing assets means those are all the businesses which have taken loan from the bank, they could not pay, and because of that reason, bank has already initiated a recovery measures, and those businesses are in the verge of their closure. Okay, so the Reserve Bank studied why your business has become non-performing asset, why your business have become a sick unit or a failing unit. Okay, and the results came like it's because of quality, because of product, because of sales, because of technology, because of marketing, because of HR issues. Okay, because of legal issues, like this, so many results came. Okay, but all those they aggregated only for 5%. All those results aggregated only for 5%. It means remaining 95% of the business units in the country, for that matter, I can even extrapolate for this entire planet. Okay, 95% of the business units, they collapsed or they become a failure only because of one reason: they've diverted short-term funds for long-term purpose. Let me put some numbers so that it will be even more clear for you. Let's say I have raised short-term funds of 70 million. Okay, and on the other side, I'm creating a short-term assets of 100 million. How is that possible? I've raised only 70 million, but how I can create 100 million? It means I should have raised another 30 million. Yes, I'm raising another 30 million from long-term funds also. So now if you see, this composition looks very ideal because I've raised the short-term of 70, long-term of 30. It means I have total of 100. With that, I've created short-term assets of 100. So what does that mean? Within 1 year, I have to repay 70 million. And for paying that 70 million, what are the assets I have? 100 million worth of assets. It means my business is really comfortable now. Why? Within 1 year, I have an obligation to pay 70 million. But for paying that 70 million, I have resources of 100 million. My business is comfortable, really comfortable. And I got this comfort because I've created short-term assets of 30 million using long-term funds, which I need not pay immediately or within a year. I can pay it after a year. So that's where my business gets the comfort. And let's say I've raised another 70 million of long-term funds. I've used it for creating long-term assets, 70 million, perfectly fine, absolutely no issue. But on the other side, just have a look at this. Okay, yeah, I'll just map this. 70 million for creating short-term assets, it's good. 30 million of long-term for creating short-term assets, I said it is ideal. And this 70 to 70 is also perfectly fine for me. But what should not happen in a business is this. I've raised short-term funds of 100 million. It means I raised with the promise that I will repay this 100 million within a period of 1 year. And what I did is I used this 100 million. I created a short-term assets of 70 million only. How much I borrowed? 100 million. How much I've created? 70 million. So now the question arises, what happened to the remaining 30 million? What happened? Where did it gone? The remaining 30 million has been used for creating long-term assets. And I raised another 70 million of long-term funds, which I used for creating long-term assets. Okay. But here you see how the funds has been utilized. I raised 100 million. I used only 70 million. So what happened to the remaining 30 million? That remaining 30 million is where I committed that blunder. That is, I diverted 30 million of short-term funds for long-term purpose. It means I used a cash credit or overdraft for purchasing land, or I've given it as a loans and advances, or I invested in sister concerns, or I purchased some plant and machinery. Okay, but what is the problem here? The problem is within 1 year, whoever have given this 30 million, they'll come and knock at your door for repayment. At that time, what you will do? You have only 70 million short-term assets, which you have to use for paying your already existing 70 million liability. And now they are asking 30 million, and that 30 million is sitting in long-term assets. How will you manage? That's where the problem starts. Okay, that's how businesses get into trouble, because whoever has given this 30 million, let's say the banker, what the bank will do, maximum they'll wait for 90 days, because that's the bank's norm. Then they will classify the loan account as non-performing asset. Then what they will do, they will classify the business as a defaulter. Okay, they will put you in CIBIL, they'll put you in a defaulters list, and that's how the beginning of end happens. That's how the beginning of end happens. Okay, and here this 70 million to 70 million, I have no issue at all. But the issue for me is diversion of 30 million of short-term funds for long-term purpose. So all entrepreneurs, whoever attending this webinar, please take this home, carry this message very seriously, and try to spread this across or with your friends who are into entrepreneurship. Finance managers, chartered accountants, consultants, take this message very seriously. Yes, because we do a lot of consulting, we do give a lot of advisory, but this is something like our critical breathing process, right? Breathe in and breathe out. So by diverting, what we are doing is we are actually putting a blockage in the breathing process. I mean, we breathe in, but we are not allowing our business to breathe out. So eventually that business will collapse. Okay, so pardon me if I started with a negative point to touch, but this is something really important, valuable for every entrepreneur, because wherever I've said this, even I got the feedback. If you had told me some 10 years before, I could have gone to a different level. I could have saved my business. That's the feedback I've received. So how many of you got this message seriously? I mean, if you are able to digest this, okay, can you just reply as yes, I understood? Okay, if you can reply as yes, I understood, yes, I understood, or just type understood. Okay, it means I'll take this as a conclusion that yes, the message is reaching the appropriate audience, because it's meant for entrepreneurs. This is not for finance managers, this is not for accountants. Okay, whoever, yes, I mean, in the process you can learn this, but entrepreneur, the key person, they should always keep a track of this. Okay, so just go and have a look at your balance sheet, how you have brought your funds, how you're utilizing it. Okay, so that's why I said how you should utilize funds and how you should not utilize funds. For some or the other reason, our academic pattern does not teach this, or even if they teach this, it's given very low weightage. But for me, it's like doctors working in ICU. Okay, the patient who comes to ICU, the business which becomes sick, 95% of the business becomes sick because of this reason. Okay, this is point number one. Okay, shall I move on to the second element? Just type go ahead. I require participation from all of you. Just type go ahead so that we can move on to the second point. Yeah. Thank you. Okay. The next one, this is something quite interesting. And many of the entrepreneurs, they believe that they know what is the cost of their business or cost of capital. But in my experience, like when we have deeper discussion with them, we come to the conclusion, no, they don't have clarity on what is the cost of capital. Okay, so how to understand? Let me take you through some numbers. Okay. Can you just type like, see, in business, if you want to run business, you have to raise money from various sources, right? You have to bring in your money as a owner. You have to borrow money. You have to raise money from bank. You have to get credit from suppliers, right? All this. Now the question is, which funds have a cost here? Can you tell me like which funds have a cost? The money what you bring in, whether that has a cost, yes or no? The money brought in by the owners, does it have a cost? Just type yes or no. The money brought in by owners. The owners are investing money into business, right? Money brought in by owners, whether that has a cost. Okay. Okay, some are saying yes. Let's see. I mean, silence, I conclude the silence as either you are not clear with that or you feel that it's no. Okay, right. The money what you raise from a bank, whether that has a cost, yes or no? Yeah, Sanju is saying yes. Ashwini, yes. Abhin, yes. A lot. Yeah, Rahul. Yes, because the money what you raise from bank has a lot of cost. You have to pay interest, you have to pay processing charges, upfront charges, and for each and everything you have to pay some cost. So in case of a bank loan, the cost component is very much visible. But what we forget to note, or what we miss out, or what we compromise in most of the cases is the cost associated with owner's money. Okay, when it comes to, see, even here in this webinar, when I asked whether a bank loan has a cost, most of you replied yes. And when I asked you whether owner's money has a cost, I got few replies. And I also got a reply saying it depends. But please understand, the money that is contributed by the owners in the business is the costliest fund. And the money that is coming from banking channel is the cheapest fund. Because when you are investing your money in your business, instead of investing in a deposit, instead of investing in a safe deposit, you are taking an altogether different risk. If you invest in a bank deposit, you are going to get 7%, 6%, or 8%, whatever, risk free. But when you invest that money, instead of investing in deposit, when you invest that money in your business, you should also ensure that you should get that risk-free return. Then you are taking a lot of risk, right? The risk like the possibility of business not giving any return, the risk of losses, the risk of lesser than expected return. It means that risk premium have to be addressed, yes or no? So now tell me whether money contributed by the owners have cost or not. Just type yes if it has a cost and type no if there is no cost. Yes, it has. It has cost. I mean, that's the costliest fund, and that's what we ignore most of the times. We just focus on ensuring recovering the cost incurred in borrowings. So point number one. Number two, Not only the money which you bring in has a cost, the profits what you have not taken home also has a cost. When your business makes a profit, when you retain the profits in the business, when you don't take it back to your pockets, that money is getting reinvested in the business. That also has a cost. The borrowings has a cost. And even the supplier's credit, when you purchase goods on credit from your supplier, and when your supplier says you pay me only after 45 days, don't think that he's a Mahatma giving you everything free for 45 days. No, for 45 days there is a cost for him, because he is utilizing his cash credit or overdraft, and with that money only he has produced the products. And he is I mean he is not collecting money from you for 45 days, but he will run his show for 45 days by using the cash credit. It means that interest cost will be loaded in goods that are purchased. So there is a cost incurred in credit purchases. When you make the cash purchase, you will see the difference. Okay, it means each and every source of funds has a cost. And why you have to understand that cost? Let's see. Let's say for running your business, you are raising funds from 4 sources. One, as an owner, you contribute capital. 2, reserves. Reserves are nothing but the profits retained within the business. That is also owner's money. 3, you raise a loan from bank, and here it is clearly given 12% loan. So you can conclude that cost is 12%. Then 4, you raise money from creditors. Let me put some imaginary numbers here. Let's say the capital what you have raised is 300, let's say 300 lakhs, it is 3 crore. The reserves you have in your business is 2 crores. It means this is the profit which you have not taken to your pocket, but rather allowed the profit to be reinvested in your business. It means 5 crore. Then you have raised a loan of 4 crore. You have payment yet to be made to your suppliers 1 crore. It means your business has raised funds of 10 crore from 4 different sources, or say 3 different sources. One is owner, capital plus reserve. 2 is loan. 3 is creditors. If you want to ensure your business is successful, you have to satisfy all the people who have given money. How many of you agree with me? Just type me. If you want to ensure your business is successful, you have to ensure all the people who have contributed money for your business are satisfied. Okay, type me if you agree with this, because if you don't pay your creators on time, he will ensure you don't get credit from anyone in the market. If you don't pay interest on time, he will ensure you don't get loan from anyone else in future. And the pity persons or the owners, they of course they are ready to bear that loss, or ready to bear that differences. But other stakeholders, we have to be very, very cautious. Okay, now listen. I've raised 3 crore plus 2 crores. So owners have contributed 5 crore, 4 crore from bank, and 1 crore from supplier. And I told you that nothing is free, everything has a cost. And I said that owners' money is the costliest fund. If you are investing in bank deposit, you should get 8%. Okay, so your business should deliver that 8%. And it should also deliver you for the risk you have taken. So let me put some numbers. The capital what you have contributed has the highest risk. So I'm putting some imaginary numbers. It means as an owner, you should expect 24% return on capital. I mean, it depends. Okay, so if it is a riskless business, you can expect 20%, you can expect 15%. But if it is a risky business, you have to expect more. And the reserves, the profits that were not taken home, which are reinvested, that should also give you a return. So you should expect, let's say, 15%. Or you can even argue, no, that is also my money. On that also, I want 24%. Yes, up to you. Then the bank loan is 12%. Creditors, I'm saying creditors can load somewhere between 15 to 20% on every credit purchase you make. Okay, so you have to make that calculation. You have to see what is the price if it is a cash payment, and what is the price if it is a credit payment. Creditors will also give you like a cash discount when you pay within the credit term. Some terms will be there. So now this business has raised 10 crore, and this is the cost involved. It means in order to satisfy the owner who have given 3 crore, this business should generate 24%. Agreed? Because this is what they expect. It means 300 into 24%, this business should generate 72 lakhs. And for having invested 200, 15%, this business should generate 30 lakhs. And for satisfying the lenders, 400 into 12, this business should generate 48 lakhs. And for satisfying the creditors to meet that credit cost, this business should also generate 18 lakhs. It means to satisfy all these contributors, this business should generate a minimum profit of 168 lakhs. How many of you agree with me? Just type agreed. Just type agreed, because 4 different persons have contributed and all of them have expectation, and your business should fulfill their expectation. Okay, just type agreed. I want to see like how many of you agree here. Yeah. Okay, perfect. Let me continue. So what is the message I'm getting here? I have borrowed 10 crore, and for this 10 crore, the cost for me is 1.68 crore. Okay, or in rough numbers, I have borrowed 1,000, and for having borrowed 1,000, I mean I borrowed, when I say I, business borrowed 1,000, of which 500 is from owners, 400 is from bank, 100 is from suppliers, and for that the cost is 168. So this gives message that my cost of capital is 168 out of 1,000. It is 16.8%. So now I can say my business has a cost of 16.8%. It means I've raised money from various parties, and overall my cost is 16.8%. Okay, now comes that important message. Okay, don't get carried away by this, because 16.8% is a very low rate. It looks like 16.8%, because some bank loans, they'll cost like 18%, and this business is only 16.8%. Okay, no issue. But here comes the problem. Many entrepreneurs, they do this calculation. They understand that their business has a cost of 16.8%. But what they fail to realize is one thing. That is, this 16.8% is your cost. And your business should generate a return of at least 16.8%. Only then this cost can be met. Yes or no? This 16.8% is your cost for your total funds you have raised of 10 crore. It means on the other side, you will also have assets of 10 crore. Using the assets of 10 crore, you have to run your business, you have to make sales, you have to make profit, and that profit should give 16.8%. It means that profit should give you 1.68 crore, so that you can meet the expectation of all the stakeholders. Agreed or not? Just type agreed. This 16.8% is only the cost. This 16.8% is only the cost. But if you want to meet the cost, you have to ensure your assets are utilized properly. Your assets are used for production. You are making sales out of it. You are making profit out of it. And that profit should give you this 168. Only then you can satisfy your stakeholders. Okay. It is at this point the problem starts. The problem is like this. In business, assets can be divided into 2 types. Performing assets, non-performing assets. It means some assets will work for business and it will generate revenue. Some assets will not at all work for business. It will not generate any revenue, but still you carry them as an asset. So look, performing asset will generate revenue. Non-performing assets will not generate revenue. Let's say I have a factory. My factory is in, let's say, 50 cents of land area. And for constructing that factory, I have purchased 1 acre of land. And my factory is in 50 cents land area. For constructing that factory, I have purchased 1 acre of land. So here, for me, the performing asset is only that 50 cents of land where I have my factory. and the remaining land, everything is a non-performing asset. Agreed? How many of you agree with me? Another example. I have a hotel. The hotel rooms are my performing asset. The reception area, the wide, vast area, what I have does not generate any revenue for me. It's a non-performing asset. But still, that is essential for me. It means the messages in business, you have to create maximum performing assets. There will be some non-performing assets which you cannot avoid, like the reception example which I gave you. In hotel, reception is a must, which I cannot avoid. So it is an essential non-performing asset. But there are non-essential non-performing assets that will be there. That will put pressure on business. That will put so much pressure. Let me show the numbers so that you will be able to appreciate it better. Look at this. Look at this. I have 10 crore worth of assets. And when I look at it, I understand that 50% are performing assets and 50% are non-performing assets. And already I said I have raised 10 crore funds and this is the corresponding assets. But what I have realized now is only 50% of assets are working for me, and remaining 50% assets, they do not generate any revenue for me, like the land example I gave you. So what is the pressure on this performing asset? This performing asset should work for you and it should generate that 168, yes or no? This performing asset should work for you. That is, here I'm saying my performing assets is only 50%, that is 500, and non-performing is 500. It means this performing asset should generate 1.68 crore profit for me. How many of you agree with me? Because the non-performing assets, it will not generate any revenue. Just type agreed. Just type agreed. Keep agreeing so that you will carry a lot of value today. So how many of you agree that it is not this 10 crore asset which is going to generate 1.68? It is only the 5 crore asset which is going to generate 1.68. No, I see very less of agreement here. Please, this is the realization required for entrepreneurs. Do not create assets simply left and right. Create revenue generating asset. Okay, let me just summarize this once again. Already I said 10 crore funds have been mobilized from owners, from reserves, from loan, from creditors. It means I will have 10 crore worth of an asset. But all the 10 crore worth of an asset is not generating revenue for me. Okay, it means I have divided the assets into two categories: performing asset, non-performing asset. Performing assets are those assets which work for me and generate revenue. The classic example I can give you is the hotel rooms. Hotel rooms generate revenue for me, but the reception area, that does not generate revenue for me. Factory works and generates revenue for me. The vacant land, so much of vacant land what I have alongside the factory will not generate revenue for me. So here I'm saying out of 10 crore, only 50% is performing asset for me. It means this 50% of assets, that is this 5 crore, should work so hard and generate profits of 1.68 crore. It means what is the pressure on this 5 crore? What is the pressure on this 5 crore? It should generate 33.6% return, because 168 out of 500. It is not 168 out of 1000 now. It is 168 out of 500. How many of you got this concept clear? Or for how many of you this makes sense? Type MS. Type MS if this makes sense for you. Right? MS stands for make sense. MS stands for make sense. Okay, this is the clarity we required. Like, we'll have so much of asset, and when we look at the returns, when you look at the profits will be very minimal. What is the reason you have so much of non-performing assets? Okay, but the story is not yet over. Our cost is 16.8, but what is the pressure for us? We have to generate a return of 33.6%. It is not yet over. What happened here? From 16.8, we just moved on to 33.6, but let me just continue. Yeah, this one. We are not working on all the days. We have so much of holidays, right? We have so much of holidays. And now, even now, it's a lockdown. I'm doing this right from home. So what are the types of holidays we have? let's see, we have Saturdays, Sundays, we have national holidays, we have festivals, we have maintenance, we have breakdowns, we have lockdowns. It means we don't work all the days, but cost will work all the day. You don't have a holiday for your interest. You don't have holiday for your principal repayments, right? That will work all the days, but assets will not work all the days. They have holidays. It means, let's say you have total assets of 10 crore, of which performing assets is only 5 crore, and that is not available throughout the year. Let's say it is available only for 2/3 of the year because of 1/3 holiday is gone. It means, what is the asset you have now? Say it is 333, or say 3.33 crore. And what is the pressure on this asset now? This 3.33 crore worth of asset should generate a return of 1.68. And what that amounts to? It is 50.45%. It is 50.45%. It means you are pressurizing a portion of your assets to generate 50.45%. I mean, I'll try to relate this with a family situation. Let's say there is a 10-member family. If all the 10 members are working all the days, then everyone requirements can be met. But out of 10 members, if only 5 members are working, for the remaining 5 members, then the pressure on this 5 members will be high. And let's say these 5 members are going to work only for 2/3 of the year, and 1/3 they are not going to work. It means five members into 2/3, you get a number, right? Let's say like 2/3 in the sense 67%. Okay. So 3 members or 2.5 members, okay, 3 members, I'll say 3 members have to work for 10 members now. Just imagine the kind of pressure that 3 members will have. Same as the pressure that is getting applied on the assets as well. So this is something which you have to understand, right? Okay. So the message is, you should know what is the cost of capital of your business. But what is even more important is how assets are going to work for you to generate return so that it matches cost of capital. If this business is going to generate a return of, let's say, 16.8% on the working assets, then this business will collapse, because the working assets is only 3.33, and that should generate a 50.45% return. Only then it matches 1.68 crore. Okay, so the message, once again, I'll repeat: when you raise funds from various parties, you have a cost. Try to find out what is the overall cost. In our case, it was 16.8%. But when we looked at the other side, what is the issue we had? We don't have all performing assets. Only part of the assets are performing. Okay. But all the assets are not working all the days. It is working only for a certain number of days in a year. And because of that, those assets are pressurized to earn much more than the cost of capital. Okay. So just go and have a look at your business, how you have created, what are the kinds of assets you have created, how much of non-performing assets you have. See, there are some essential non-performing assets which you cannot avoid, but there will be various non-essential non-performing assets. Get rid of them. Okay, dispose them, bring that money and invest in your core operations, then see how business is growing. Or bring liquidity. Okay, when you dispose of non-core assets and reinvest that money back in your business will have that breather, enough breather. Just imagine day in and day out suppliers knocking at your door asking for payment. Why? Because all your money is getting logged in non-essential, non-performing assets. Try to get rid of them. Okay, and when you understand the cost of capital, load that in your revenue. See, when your cost is 16.8%, and if your business is generating a revenue of 15%, already there is a gap of 1.68. And who is going to be the loser there? Not the banker, not the supplier, but only the entrepreneur. When the cost of the business is 16%, and if the business generates 10%, who is going to be the loser? Obviously the owner. Okay, so try to understand cost of capital, see how it is built, what kind of assets you have. Okay, and try to understand the return which your business have to generate, then work on it. Then gradually you will be able to see that you are understanding your numbers better and you can grow towards that. Okay, so how many of you got this concept clear? The concept of cost of capital, just type CC. CC stands for concept clear. Just type CC. It's very important, the cost of capital. Several entrepreneurs, even though they understand, they just ignore the second dimension of it. I mean, the performing assets part and the number of days they are available. Okay, right. And the third one is, okay, I'll just skip this. Yeah, the third one is some important financial metrics which as an entrepreneur you should have control of. Okay, because there are various financial metrics, various ratios, tools available. And of course you will be having your own dashboard, right, to understand like what is the sales made during the day, what are the expenses, what is the gross margin, net margin and all. But there are even some other critical important thing which always you try to keep track of. Okay, number one is current ratio. A very, very important ratio, but because of its simplicity it is not given that due weightage. Look at this. On the screen, you can see on the left-hand side, I've written liabilities. On the right-hand side, I've written assets. Liabilities, basically the current liabilities. What do I mean by current liability? These are all the liability. These are all the borrowings which you have made, and you have to repay them within a period of 1 year. And what is your current assets? These are all the assets which you can convert into cash within a period of 1 year. So what you have to repay within a period of 1 year is shaded in green, and what you have to repay, the resources what you have to repay, that is shaded in blue. And look, the blue is bigger than green. That's how it should be, right? The resources should be greater than obligation. And you can always measure this. What is your present position? Whether you have resources greater than your obligation, simple, by calculating a ratio called current ratio. It is very simple. Take current asset divided by current liability. Pick your balance sheet, take the total of current asset divided by current liability. That communicates what is your liquidity position. What do I mean by liquidity position? Liquidity means ability of your business to meet your short-term expenses, short-term obligations without any difficulty. And when you calculate current ratio, you get to know what is your liquidity level. But please don't make it as an annual exercise. Please don't make it as an annual ritual. You should prepare financial statement. I mean, as an entrepreneur, you should ensure your MIS team, your accounts team, gives you financial statements at shorter intervals. Okay, do not do this only for annual compliance process. Balance sheet is like your mirror. Okay, it will show only what it show. I mean, what it captures. So your business will talk for itself through the financial statements. So you should review this financial statements at frequent intervals, if not possible at monthly intervals, at least at quarterly intervals. Monthly, on a monthly basis, if your accounts team can prepare financial statements and give you the P&L and balance sheet, nothing like that. So you can track the month-on-month progress. Okay, so measure this ratio, current asset divided by current liability. Let me put some numbers so that you will have better clarity. Look at this. This business has current liability of 100, say the bank cash credit, 100 in the sense 100 lakhs, so 1 crore. Sundry creditors 2 crores. And what they did with this, they borrowed totally 3 crores and they created some assets. Assets are cash at bank of 2 crore, stock of 2 crore, and receivables of 2 crore. And now if you look at this balance sheet, yes, it's going to be an amazing one, because this business has borrowed 3 crore and it has created assets of 6 crore. And there is a other dimension of looking at it. That is, this business has to repay 3 crore within 1 year, and for repaying 3 crore, they have 6 crore. So we can say the liquidity position of this business is comfortable. If I put that in a form of a graph, Look at this, the red bar indicates the resources, the blue bar is the obligation. It means you have resources greater than the obligation, and this is your comfort zone. We call this as net working capital, technical term. Okay, so your resources are greater than obligation. It means your business is having a positive net working capital. Always aim for positive net working capital in your business. And when you will have this, only when you create a portion of current assets with long-term funds. Please do not commit the mistake of creating all the current assets with current liability. Because in the fund utilization principle, I said something as ideal. Use a portion of long-term funds for creating short-term assets. That will give you a breather. Okay, so try to always strive for positive net working capital. So the metric what you have to look for is current ratio. Whether your current ratio is greater than 1, I'll show the numbers. Then you should always look for positive net working capital. All those will give you breather. Look at the scenario 2. Scenario 2, this business has borrowed cash credit 1 crore, sundry creditors 2 crore, and they've created current assets cash of 1 crore, stock of 1 crore, receivables of 1 crore. I think they are following matching principle. They've raised short-term funds of 3 crore. They've created short-term assets of 3 crore. They're trying to raise the collar saying that, look, we have matched everything. But this will actually put this business in trouble only. The reason being, just imagine the bankers are asking for the repayment, 1 crore. And let's say you have cash in bank of 1 crore. Okay, settle the banker, pay off. And now the sundry creditors are asking for repayment, 2 crore. And for paying the sundry creditors, what you have left now, stock of 1 crore, receivables of 1 crore. Receivable means customers who are ready to make the payment. Okay, you call your customer and customers are ready to make the payment. It means you get the 1 crore, pay off the sundry creditors, 1 out of 2. It means still another 1 crore is pending. And do you have any resources left with you now? Only the stock. So you have to pay your supplier 1 crore, and what you have is a stock of 1 crore. How will you manage? Because getting the stock converted into cash will take little time, right? You have to convert them into finished goods. You have to keep it on display. You have to identify a buyer. And if the buyer says he needs it on credit terms, then gone. It means the stock will not come for rescue all the time. So that's why I say this is not an ideal scenario. Even though it looks like exactly the short-term assets are used for short-term, exactly the short-term funds are used for short-term assets, it is not ideal, because remember fund utilization principle. It is ideal to use a portion of long-term funds for creating current assets. In this case, we could not see any long-term funds having come for creating a current asset. Okay. So if I put them in a form of a graph, you will see everything matching. It might look like ideal, but it is not ideal. Okay. So ensure your business is not in this zone. It should be on the other zone. That is, current assets should be greater than current liability. The third one, this is very important. This is something related to our fund utilization principle. So these are all the borrowings and the assets what they have created. Look at here. They've borrowed 300, that is 3 crore, and cash they have 0.5 crore. Stock they have 0.75 crore. Receivables they have 0.75 crore. So what is their total borrowings? 3 crore. What are the resources they have? 2 crore. Here comes the problem. Within 1 year, this business should pay 3 crore, and for paying that, the resources will be in the form of current assets. For paying 3 crore, the resources what they have is 2 crore. It means now there is a clear sign of a problem. It means how this business will repay the remaining 1 crore. That is one question. On the other side, when they raised 3 crore, they've created assets of 2 crore only. What happened to the remaining 1 crore? That 1 crore has been used for what purpose? Can someone answer me? They've raised 300 crore out of 3 crore, of which only 2 crore has been used for building or creating current assets. My question is, what happened to the remaining 1 crore? Obvious, the remaining 1 crore they have used for creating long-term assets. Thank you, Rahul. They've used the remaining 1 crore for long-term assets. It means they have diverted the short-term funds for long-term purpose. And if I put that in a form of a graph, this blue bar is an obligation. You have so much of obligation, but look at the resources you have. It's lesser than that. So you can see there is a gap, and this is your danger zone. So when your obligations are greater than resources, it means your business is having a negative net working capital. Please go and have a look at your balance sheet. If your business is having negative net working capital, it's time that you have to start working on that. Okay, negative net working capital is not good for a business, because negative net working capital means you have more of obligation and less of resources, and we do not know when those lenders will turn volatile. I mean when those lenders will turn hostile, sorry. And if the lenders are bankers, then you know, yes, it's only 90 days. And if lenders are suppliers, probably for quite some time they'll follow up with you, then they go for a legal recovery measures. So ensure your business is not in this zone, that is not negative net working capital. So I'll put all the cases here, 3 scenarios we had. Scenario 1, this is what we discussed. Current asset 600, current liability 300. So the difference is net working capital, and net working capital is nothing but a portion of long-term fund. And current liability of 300, net working capital of 300. You can see these two only was used for creating current asset of 600. Or for repaying this 300 within a period of 1 year, they have resources of 600 thanks to the support of net working capital. Just imagine like this. I'll put it from the point of view of middle class family. Okay. As a father, you have to pay your child's school fee 50,000 rupees. And for paying that 50,000 rupees, you have 1 lakh with you. Just imagine how comfortable you are. And on the other side, for paying 50,000 rupees, you just have only 30,000 rupees with you. You are facing a shortage of 20,000. Imagine the kind of pressure you will have. The same gets applicable for the business as well. And that's what we measure in current ratio. So here, the current ratio, if I calculate, what is the formula I gave? Current asset by current liability, 600 by 300. It gives the ratio as 2:1. It means for every 1 rupee obligation, this business is having 2 rupees resource. 600 by 300. For every 1 rupee obligation, this business is having 2 rupees resources. So we can say the liquidity position of this business is comfortable. But in second scenario, current asset is 300, current liability is also 300. There is no long-term fund. And if I calculate the ratio 300 by 300, it is 1:1. It means for every 1 rupee obligation, this business is having only 1 rupee resource. And it is possible that 1 rupee resource may not come for rescue when it is required. I gave you the example of stock. And third scenario, that is this serious one. This current asset is 200, current liability is 300. It means there is no long-term fund contribution. Rather, what happened is a current liability of 100 has been diverted for long-term asset. And if I calculate the current ratio, it is 200 by 300. It is 0.67:1. It means for every 1 rupee obligation, this business is having a resource of 67 paise only. It means clearly there is a shortage of 33 paise per rupee of obligation. There is a shortage of 33 paise per rupee of obligation. Okay, that's what current ratio communicates. So just by looking at the ratio of 2:1, I can say this business is having a comfortable liquidity. And by looking at the ratio of 0.67:1, I can say this business is running in trouble. So have a look at the current ratio of your business and see what are the corrective measures you have to do. This is point number 1. Number 2, financial metric number 2 is debt to equity ratio. Debt to equity ratio. Here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to compare the debt with equity. Yeah, before I proceed with that. So how the session is going? Are you learning something valuable? If you are learning something valuable, just type ILV. ILV stands for I am learning valuable. Type ILV. Type ILV. I just want to see like how many of you are able to take these key concepts absolutely for entrepreneurs. Absolutely for entrepreneurs. Just type ILV. ILV stands for I am learning valuable things today. Okay. Thanks a lot. The second important metric which every entrepreneur should always, even in sleep, if I ask you what is the debt equity ratio of your business, you should be able to respond. Okay, right. What is that? Let's say your business is raising money from owners. I'm giving some imaginary numbers, 1 crore. It is raising money from bankers, 1 crore. some debentures. Debentures is basically a debt instrument. Okay, it's like a loan, not from the bank, but from the general public. Okay, 1 crore. Sundry creditors, 2 crore. It means suppliers. So this business has totally raised 5 crore. And here we are talking about what? Debt to equity ratio. That is, we are going to compare the debt with equity. The money contributed by the owners, we call as equity. I mean, the money contributed by the owners, the money that are attributable to owners, everything we call as equity. And money that has come from the outsiders, in this case, it is 100 plus 100 plus 200. We call this as outside liabilities. It is 400. Now listen. In debt to equity ratio, what we do, we compare the debt with equity. So here we have a debt of 400, we have an equity of 100. If I compare this, I'm going to get a ratio and I'll communicate what its importance. Okay, I'll take you through 3 scenarios so that you can appreciate it better. Yeah. So this is the formula for debt equity ratio. That is, debt will be in the numerator, equity will be in the denominator. That is 400 in the numerator and 100 in the denominator. And obviously we get the value as 4. But how we will expressing it, I'll show you 3 scenarios. Look at here. Scenario 1, the total outside liability, what we have calculated now is 4 crore. Equity, owner's money is 1 crore. And debt to equity, that is 400 by 100. I get the ratio as 4 and I will be expressing it as 4:1. It means 4 for everyone. It means for every 1 rupee contributed by the owner, this business has borrowed 4 rupees. I repeat, for every 1 rupee contributed by the owners, this business has borrowed from outside liability 4 rupees. So what is the message? What is the total funds raised here? 4 plus 1, 5 rupees. For every 5 rupees raised by this business, owners have contributed 1 rupee, outsiders are contributing 4 rupees. Yes or no? Just type agreed. For every 1 rupee contributed by the owners, for every 5 rupees raised by this business, 1 rupee is contributed by the owner and 4 rupees is contributed by outsiders. Just type agree. See, all this agreement, no, it's to ensure that you are engaged, because we are in a remote learning. It's possible that we get distracted. So just type agree. Just type agree. For every 1 rupee contributed by the owner, this business has borrowed 4 rupees. Okay. So what that means? It means outsiders are contributing 4 out of 5. It means outsiders are contributing 80% in this business and owners are contributing only 1 out of 5, 20% of this business. It means this business is substantially run with the support of outsiders only, because 80% of the money has come from outsiders only and 20% is from your side. So entrepreneurs who are running business with this kind of a ratio, please note one thing. Your business is attracting financial risk. I'm not here to threaten you, but just to keep you informed. Your business is attracting financial risk. Financial risk will come and haunt us or affect us in recessionary situations. So the business which has high level of debt will have high level of repayment commitment, will have high level of interest, and recessionary situations, what happens? The sales will come down. But these fixed obligations, fixed commitments will remain fixed. So when sales comes down, when the cost remains fixed, what will happen? That business will report loss. So whenever you add debt in your capital structure, I mean, the scenario like this business has raised 5 crore, of which only 1 crore is from owner, 4 crore is from outsiders. Also have this realization that you are not only attracting 4 crore money, you are also attracting financial risk. See, this capital structure combination will do good for a business, will do magic for a business in a booming market condition. Why? If you are having 5 crore of funds, on the other side, you will have 5 crore of assets also. And using that 5 crore of assets in a booming market condition, you will be able to sell more, you will be able to make more profit. But whoever has given this loan, they will not come and take share in the profit. They will take only their interest. It means after paying their interest, whatever the money comes, that's for the owners. So at the time, we can enjoy this capital structure. It means if you are having more of debt and less of owners' money in your business, it will do wonders, it will do magic for you in a booming market condition. But at the same time, in a recessionary market condition like this kind of a capital structure is going to cost us heavily. So what we have to do, wherever possible, I mean, if you are capable enough to convert the outside liabilities into equity, or if you are in a position to reduce the outside liabilities in these scenarios, or if you are in a position to get these outside liabilities elongated for a longer period, it will help you. Okay, the ideal thing is, in a recessionary market condition, ideally the debt should be substituted with equity. But there will be some voice like, we don't have money at this point. So you have to resort for some kind of a restructuring mechanism. But I won't recommend it for all. But if the recessionary condition is getting extended like this, okay, then you have to ensure that you are reducing your financial burden. Either substitute the outside liabilities with equity, or get the repayment commitments extended by restructuring whenever the banking system permits. Because as of now, RBI came out with a restructuring package for 3+3 6 months for business entities who are facing struggles. Yes, you have to talk to your bankers and ensure, because this kind of a ratio, the ratio like 4:1, will have high financial risk, because 80% of the borrowed fund means you have to pay interest, you have to repay principal on this 80% of funds, and that will have significant impact. And on the other side, let's say, look at the scenario 2, your outside liability. See, I've picked the different numbers, but the total will be same. Total will be 5 crore. I've just changed the composition, right? Outside liability is 333 and owner's money is 167. That is, if I calculate a debt equity ratio now, 333 by 167, I get the ratio is 2:1. Just for getting this ratio, I've chosen this number. Okay, 2:1. And what does that mean? For every 1 rupee contributed by the owner, this business is borrowing only 2 rupees. So that's comparatively much better than scenario 1. In scenario 1, for every 1 rupee, there is a 4 rupees borrowing. Here, for every 1 rupee, there is only 2 rupees borrowing. It means outsiders are contributing only 2/3. It means they're contributing only 67%, and owners are contributing 33%. The financial risk has come down in this pattern. And the third scenario is something like this, where I've taken the total 5 crore, of which outside is 2.5, owners is 2.5. And if I calculate the debt equity ratio now, it is 1:1. It means outsiders are contributing 1 out of 250%, and owners are contributing 1 out of 250%. And what that mean? Here, the financial risk has come down substantially. Okay, so how you should keep your capital structure in a booming market condition? You can have a capital structure like this, where you can have more of debt and less of equity. In a recessionary market condition, you should try to get capital structure like this when you have other sources of funds. Okay, when you have other sources of funds, try to substitute the high cost funds with owners' money, get rid of the financial cost. And when you don't have other source of funds, in order to ensure that you survive in this period, you have to elongate your repayment structure. I mean, yes, when you elongate this, there will be some additional cost, but that gets extended over a period of time and you will be able to make a comeback. Otherwise, it's possible that we get washed out in this period. Okay, so that's the importance of debt equity ratio. And even from the banker side, okay, they give the highest weightage when they analyze your business. They give highest weightage for this debt equity ratio, number 1. Number 2, they look at your liquidity, that is your current ratio, so that gets the second highest weightage. And number 3, they look at your profitability ratios. Okay, they look at your net profit with sales. So these 3 are the key metrics which you should always keep and hold of. You should keep monitoring, and whenever you feel like it is going beyond an acceptable level, then you should start taking corrective actions. Okay, And one more ratio, I'll just touch on that. Yeah, I'm skipping this. And there are also something known as working capital turnover ratios, which I'm not covering in this session, because if I start talking about this, it will run for another 20 to 35 minutes. But as an entrepreneur, try to get working capital turnover ratios. Working capital turnover ratios in the sense, you will have inventories, you will have receivables, you will have suppliers, right? You have to see how many times you are rotating your inventory. If you're rotating your inventory at a faster pace in your business, it means you're doing your business well. How many days of time you're taking, or how many days time you take to get money from your customers, that comes under debtors turnover. And how many days time you take to settle your creditors. These three will influence your working capital. These three will influence your day-to-day operations. Okay, so working capital turnover ratios are very important. Probably in some other session we'll have a detailed discussion on working capital turnover ratios, but I just want to touch on one more ratio. Yeah, this one, fixed asset turnover ratio. This we can link with our cost of capital discussion, because in cost of capital I said create a performing asset, don't create non-performing asset, or don't create non-essential non-performing asset. Create only essential performing assets, and create, if required, essential non-performing assets, but try to keep it as minimum as possible. Okay, so this is my last part of the presentation. With this I should be able to conclude. Okay, right. Now just imagine there is a company called X Limited. They are investing in a project. Let's say investment size is something like 100 crore. And why they are investing in this project? It's with an expectation of getting 15% return on investment. It means they are expecting this business to give them a return of 15 crore by making a profit of 15 crore. So there's a company called X Limited. They are taking up a project at a cost of 100 crore. They are expecting a return of 15%. It means they are expecting that business to make a profit of 15 crore so that they can get their return on investment of 15 crore. Now listen, some important lessons. Let's say incidentally, this business is also having a profitability of 15%. I'm stressing on incidentally, because here the return on investment is 15%. By investing 100 crore, they are expecting 15% return. And I'm saying profitability is 15%. What is profitability? It means when this business makes a sales of 100 rupees, they make a profit of 15 rupees. Okay, that's what I mean profitability. This business has a profitability of 15%. It can be greater than, it can be less than, but let me continue with this understanding. Now listen. This business is having a fixed asset of 100 crore. And let's say they are making a sales of 50 crore. Okay, they have assets of 100 crore, but their annual sales is 50 crore. And what is their profitability? 15%. That's what I mentioned as profit margin. So what will be the profit of this business? 50 crore into 15%. This will be the profit, 7.5 crore. Okay, now I have a question. Whether the entrepreneurs who have invested in this business, will they be happy with this profit? Will they be happy with this profit? Even though this business is generating, giving 15% profitability, will they be happy? Yes or no? This business is generating 7.5 crore. It is giving 15% profit margin on every sale. And they made sales of 50 crore in a year. They are reporting a profit of 7.5 crore. Whether the owners of this business, will they be happy? Please, yes or no. I just want to see as many answers as possible, because another key lessons which you have to carry home today, they cannot be happy. They cannot be happy. What is the reason? The owners are expecting a profit of 15 crore. Their expectation is 15% return on investment. You should not confuse this 15% return on investment with 15% profit margin. If your business is capable of delivering 15% profit margin, it does not mean it will meet the expectation of 15% return on investment. Okay, now listen. Using the same fixed assets 100 crore, since they have realized that 7.5 crore is not sufficient, they have pushed their sales. and sales jumped from 50 crore to 75 crore, and profit margin is same 15%. So what is going to be the profit now? 75 crore into 15%. And if you calculate now, it is 11.25 crore. Even now, the owners cannot be happy. Why? Because the owners are expecting 15 crore, and this business is generating 11.25 despite with 15% profit margin. Okay, so they are giving even more harder push. Using fixed assets of 100 crore, now they were able to make a sales of 100 crore. And 100 crore sales is giving them a profit margin of 15%. It means 100 into 15%, their profit is 15 crore. Okay, now tell me whether owners of this business will be happy. At least now, yes or no? Just type yes if owners will be happy, or type no. They have invested 100 crore with an expectation of getting 15 crore as return, and this business is making sales of 100 crore and they're making a profit of 15 crore, and it is matching the expectation. So we can say yes, that is a matching. So owners can be happy now. And let's say the fixed assets is 100, sales is 125 crore. This business is reporting a profit margin of 15%. It means now their profit will be 18.75 crore, whereas expectation is only 15 crore. So owners should be jumping with the joy because they expected 15 crore. This business is delivering them 18.75 crore. So yes. So what's happening here? There is a relationship between the fixed asset and sales. Look at here. When you had fixed assets of 100 crore and sales of 50 crore, when you had fixed assets of 100 crore and sales of 75 crore, you can say the sales is less than fixed assets, and here the sales is equal to fixed assets, and here the sales is greater than fixed assets. It means in these two scenarios, there is an inefficient utilization of fixed assets. They've created so much of fixed assets, but what is the sales they are achieving? It's less than the fixed assets. So when they had a profit margin of 15%, it didn't help at all. And when they had a profit margin of 15%, and when their sales and fixed assets are equal, they were able to make efficient utilization of fixed assets. And here, when it is greater than fixed assets, yes. So what happened in these cases is, when their profit margin is exactly equal to expected return on investment, they were able to do justice only when the sales are equal to fixed assets. But in reality, in your case, in real life, profitability need not be exactly equal to expected return. Expected return can be 20%, profitability can be 10%, or expected return can be 15%, profitability can be only 5%, 8%, 2%. It varies, right? There are business models which runs with 2% profitability. There are business models which gives 20% profitability. So what is important is you have to understand the relationship between these three: fixed assets, sales, profit margin. When you have fixed assets equal to sales, and when your profitability and return on investment are one and the same, then this kind of a scenario will help your business. And let's say your profitability is 20%, and the owners are expecting only 15%, and if your profitability is 20%, then even a sales lesser than fixed assets, lesser than 100 crore, will also do benefit, right? Probably the 75 crore into 20% will give 15 crore, and that will match. So try to understand that relationship. Okay, ensure your business makes enough sales to do justice for the fixed assets what you have created. If you're going to create, probably this scenario I can say, if I erase whatever I have said so far, and if I say this 100 crore is generating sales of only 50 crore, because out of 100 crore, remaining say 70 crore is only land, only 30 crore assets are generating revenue. It means then I would say, yes, this business is doing an amazing job. By using 30 crore, they were able to make a sales of 50 crore. But what is the point? It is generating a profit of only 7.5 crore. It is not matching the expectation. Are you getting this point? Okay. So what I'm trying to drive here is a relationship between the sales and fixed assets. That's what I call as a fixed asset turnover ratio, which is nothing but the net sales by average fixed assets. So if you take scenario one, okay, that is 50 crore divided by 100 crore, The ratio is 0.5:1. It means for every 1 rupee of fixed asset, they are making a sales of only 50 paisa only. You cannot expect any justice for the investments. Here, for every 1 rupee, they are making a sales of only 75 paisa. Here also, you cannot expect any justice for the investment as long as the profit margin is 15%. But on the other side, if the profit margin had it been 20%, even the 75 crore sales will do justice for the investment. Look at the third scenario. For every 1 rupee of asset, I'm making a sales of 1 rupee. And here I say there is a justice for investment because my 15% profitability is giving 15 crore, which is matching with the return. But on the other side, if my profit margin had it been 10%, just imagine 100 crore sales will give 10% profit margin, 10 crore. What is the expectation? 15 crore. So again, gone. It means even 1:1 ratio will not help me. So what is the message here is you have to ensure, you have to understand the relationship between the return on investment and profit margin. And you have to target sales in such a way that you do justice for the investment made in the business. Okay, when you keep these numbers right, it will help you to keep a clear-cut target, clear-cut budget, so that your team, your people can strive towards that. With this note, I wish to conclude, and I believe like most of you would have got at least some inputs in this session. So the conclusion is, or the summary note is, lesson number 1, never ever divert short-term funds for long-term purpose. Take it as an oath. Number 2, understand importance of cost of capital. Build it in all your calculations, computations, then take decisions accordingly. Number 3, keep track of key financial metrics. Okay, so with this, I wish to conclude. And if you have derived some value out of the session, I mean, if you had some kind of a bulb on moment, okay, just type bulb on. And this is the feedback I always take from my students, participants. If you had learned something today, if it is something valuable for you, type bulb on. Thanks a lot. Yeah, over to Sajid.
Oh, thank you for the enlightenment session, Radha. Now we can move on to the Q&A interactive session. If anyone have any doubts, you can raise your hands. We'll allow them to talk, or you can ask it in the Q&A tab. So it's time for the participants. If anyone have any doubts, you can ask in the Q&A tab or raise your hands.
Okay, I think there is an overall clarity on the 3 issues I addressed.
Hi, sir. I have a question. Can I go ahead?
Yeah, Rahul.
Yes. First of all, thank you very much. For me, it was going to back to basics. So very helpful. But I have one question. Right at the beginning, you mentioned that short-term funds should not be used for creating long-term assets. Are there any exceptions to it?
Exceptions, see, I mean, if your business can generate good amount of cash flows from your operations, and if you are very sure that you can cover up that in a shorter period, then you can. Otherwise, please don't do that. Okay, otherwise, never ever, because that's why I said never ever. Maybe for a shorter period. As I told you, like if you can ensure like you have some other cash flows in pipeline, maybe you'll be getting it in another 1 month or 2 month time. Yeah, for bridging the long-term funds. So you have a term loan sanctioned, you are yet to receive that, or you have identified an equity investor. Maybe in 1 month, 2 month time, you are likely to get those funds. Then only in those cases, you can use a short-term for long-term purpose. But if you don't have that visibility, okay, the cash flow visibility, never ever divert it, because whoever have given that short-term funds, it's purely for business. they will ask for repayment. And at the time, if you are not in a position to repay that, then yes, we know the implications.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Rahul.
So anyone next?
Okay, good.
So I think everyone have cleared every doubt.
Yes. And I just thought of mentioning my website. So can I?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Whoever have attended this webinar, if you wish to know more about my training programs, especially on this domain for entrepreneurs, just visit my website, carajaclasses.com. Okay, I'll just put my site. There are programs, pre-recorded programs available. You can enroll and access them whenever you wish. It is www.carajaclasses.com. Okay, I've done that. Rahul, I'm based at Ernakulam, Kerala.
So
And,
we can.
Yeah.
Yeah, tell me, sir.
Yeah. Just also go through our YouTube channel. More than 1,000 video lectures related to topics like this available in our YouTube channel. Just do a Google search of CA Raja classes. You will get an idea. Thank you.
With this, we have come to the end of our webinar. We thank you, all our participants, and we hope that session is informative. Thank you again for being a part of this webinar. Thank you, Raja sir, for joining us. It was an amazing session.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Rocky. Sanju, thank you. Thank you very much.
Once again, thanking you all. Have a good day. Bye-bye. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.